It looks like President Trump has finally made up his mind. Tonight, Trump will announce his decision on whether or not the United States will remain in the JCPOA nuclear deal with Iran. But for most, the writing is already on the wall. The feeling is that Trump will almost certainly be nixing the deal altogether, a threat that he's been making since his first days on the campaign trail. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here now. And Brett, if we're now looking at the end of the deal, where do things go from here?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question. I mean, first of all, if Trump withdraws America from the deal, which most indeed predict will be the case, really all he's going to be doing here is leaving the rest for Europe and Iran to figure out on their own. So this may not be the end of the deal as maybe we think it is. Europe will try to save it, obviously because they think the deal is working. They think it's working. So as of now, atomic inspectors have certified that Iran has actually followed the terms of the deal to the letter. Iranian leadership, however, seems split on what Iran would do if Trump pulls out. Now, Iran could conceivably stay in the deal, but just as easily, they could pull out.
Well, clearly, this is kind of what some people are fearing, that Trump nixing the deal dismantles the entire thing, meaning Iran would resume developing nuclear weapons immediately. And Iran has threatened that it's fully prepared to do just that.
Right, correct. So Trump has a few options after tonight if he does pull out of the deal. So one, he could say, hey, the U.S. is out, but we won't resume those sanctions. I personally doubt this will be the case. Two, Trump could resume the sanctions, and from there, Iran they would face a lot of pressure to withdraw from the deal as well, because economically they would have no other choice but to do so. Now, there is a chance Trump may say, out loud, Iran violated the deal, and that would then trigger the UN to hopefully resume its widespread of international sanctions. This would be a pretty extreme choice and maybe even a tough one because there may not be enough evidence to really back that up. But at the end of the day, all of these choices will inevitably strike a big stake through the leadership that made this deal with Iran in the first place, which, with the divided leadership, it's really unclear, what the future holds there.
Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu has obviously made no secret of the fact that he wants this deal gone for good.
Right.
Many see his reveal of, Israeli intel from Iran's nuclear archive on primetime TV as a direct message to Trump to actually nix the deal. Now, my question is, if there is no plan B, if there's so much uncertainty here, why does he want this deal gone?
Well, you can be sure that Israel definitely has its own plan B. Maybe not one that it shares with the rest of the world, but it definitely has one. And it's interesting because this deal is one of the biggest public clashes, of course, between Netanyahu and former President Barack Obama. Netanyahu famously addressed, both houses of Congress hoping to nix that deal at the very last minute. So this has been a long campaign for him. But now that we're a few years after that deal, many top Israeli officials and advisors from the time say that they actually feel that the deal is working, even if it isn't perfect. And the IDF's current chief of staff is a prime example of that. He says that there's no doubt Iran is likely operating behind closed doors, but at the same time, the deal in its current state is working. We bought another 10 years before Iran can develop nukes, which gives Israel time to prioritize the more immediate problems on the horizon, so no one knows what's going to happen tonight or in the future. Are sanctions alone going to be enough to topple Iran's regime? We're just not sure.
Well, Trump will address the American people tonight, but it's an announcement the whole world will be watching. Now, let's go into the nitty-gritty here.
Sure.
Many regional players have indicated that they don't have a taste for war. Many analysts don't see this conflict playing out in any other way. What do you think a war with Iran will look like?
It's tough because, the way I see it, there's almost two different wars we could be looking at. The first war is the one where Iran tomorrow says, hey, Trump is out, so we're out. So we're going to start developing a nuclear arsenal. That's a war that involves possibly directly between Israel and Iran. That's one war. The mission to stop nuclear arms in general from getting into Iranian hands. The second war is many see as the more urgent war. That's the one that's 60,000 alleged Iranian soldiers right on Israel's border in southern Syria. That's a war where Russia is kind of allowing a situation to happen where Iranian proxy armies are arming Hezbollah militants in Syria, and Assad is backing it up. So that's a war, more a territorial war that's right on the border. So those are kind of two wars there, and both are, very, very scary.
Well, I mean, you can certainly feel the tension here in Israel regarding what is going to happen. Do you believe, as many others do, that the Israeli prime minister really actually wants a war to break out in response to this deal failing? What is your take on that?
Again, it's tough because, on one hand, it's hard to say that any leader is just gunning their country for war, but at the same time, because Netanyahu has so long campaigned against this deal, if Israel's mission here is a 100% guarantee that there is no way that nukes are going to be in Iran's hands, the only way to do that may be a full frontal war where just all the cards come on the table. This may be a plan like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years in the making. That's a dangerous objective because, again, you have a deal in place now that at least gives 7 to 10 years before Iran can have nuclear arms. So that's why many people say, the deal is working, there's no nukes. But for Israel, that may be too short a term for them. They may be saying, hey, look, and Netanyahu has said, we would rather deal with this problem now than later. So he may be really hoping that Trump is going to kind of lay up that assist where they can make now.
Well, obviously, this is just one issue that is on the minds of American and Israeli leaders, especially what's coming up in a week from now. Thanks for joining us, Britton. We'll move on to our next story.